Welcome to the Northern Powerhouse interview series, where we're unashamedly spreading good news by interviewing Northern businesses and their successes during the pandemic. Subscribe to be notified of new interviews or click the link in the description to take part if you'd like to be interviewed yourself in a future episode.
Afternoon and welcome to Northern Powerhouses Business Success Stories. So we are joined by Lisa McFarlane this afternoon, who is the Director at Southern Architecture. So good afternoon, Lisa. Thank you ever so much for joining us. Can I just start off by asking you to introduce yourself to us properly? Can you tell us a little bit more about you guys and what exactly it is that you do?
So we're a medium-sized practice, so we're around sort of 22 people at the moment. We have offices in Harrogate and Manchester, so I'm based in the Manchester office. And as a practice, we focus on predominantly what makes us really excited is projects that give things back to communities, and having been in business for about 13 years, we went through a kind of a rebranding exercise, and we started to ask the question about what gets us excited about what we do, and it kind of led us down. It made us think about the impact that architecture has on people and people's lives and communities. So we do a lot of education projects, and so our sort of key strands of specialist expertise are in education. So we have a specialist team that work on predominantly education projects. I'm a specialist conservation architect, so I do a lot of heritage regeneration projects, which I absolutely love. So we have teams that are really excited about bringing buildings back to life, and we recognise the importance historic buildings have on communities, and how with a bit of love and energy you can really transform areas through sort of regenerating historic buildings and kind of helping people get through the complexities of working with historic buildings. We do quite a bit of residential still. But kind of our mainstay is that sort of community project, and we're also a framework architect for on-site youth zone. So community is kind of a key strand that runs through everything that we do, and it's kind of what gets us out of bed in the morning and gets us really excited about working with people and helping them kind of get through, and helping them come up with ideas and how to sort of regenerate buildings and communities. So that's kind of where we are as a business, and where we kind of think our strength is as a practice.
Amazing. So in light of the last year, the situation over the last year and the challenges that we've all been faced with, what has that meant for you guys? What has it meant for your business?
It's been I don't think anyone could have foreseen the outcome of the last year. What it's meant for us is forcing us to go through the process of digitization, and people work from home like probably everybody else, and it's meant that we've had to work more flexibly, as previously we used to work in kind of teams that worked on specific projects with specific clients, whereas through the last year working remotely, it's enabled us to work more as one big team and kind of have more collaborative working between team members. So I think one of the benefits that's come out of it is that we work much better as a whole. We kind of pull in individuals to help get something completed, or we kind of get more people involved in projects rather than being purely dealt with by 2 or 3 people. So the awareness across the practice of the types of projects that we're working on throughout the practice is much better as a consequence of that, I think. And obviously it's forced us down that remote working route, and I think it's something that we kind of always thought about, and we had some flexibility, but I think now it's led us to, probably like a lot of other practices, think about remote working sort of on a 2 to 3 day basis as a permanent fixture. So I think everyone's appreciated the time to kind of switch the emails off and focus on what you need to do, and have that distraction-free environment. But they've also missed the kind of the collaborative work that we tend to do. We kind of need to bounce ideas off people, and it's been. I think that's probably where we've recognised that there is still a need for the office environment, but albeit in a slightly different guise to what it was previously.
Absolutely, and so many people that I'm speaking to say exactly the same thing, in that it's something, the hand has been forced, so to speak, in terms of that remote working, but it's something they're likely to embrace moving forward. But with that mix, and still really craving that time in the office together to be able to collaborate, and especially creatives and people in that kind of environment whereby you need to be able to bounce off one another and collab on projects. So you mentioned that you guys have been able to, maybe now you've been working remotely and over Zoom rather than working in such small teams. So now you don't maybe necessarily have the constraints of the geographical limitations. Do you think that's something that you guys will keep hold of?
Definitely. So I'm working more with the Harrogate team, so on larger scale heritage projects. So it has meant that that barrier of the travelling hasn't stopped us working together, and it means that we feel more as one practice rather than two separate practices. Yeah. So I think that's a definite benefit.
Brilliant.
From the last year. And I think it's also kind of reinforced what we want to achieve as a practice, and that I think if nothing else comes out of this year, it will be a more people being more compassionate about how people have to live, and the standards that people live in, and space standards and things like that. That I think it'll start to become a lot more. It'll be brought more to the fore as a key criteria for selection of architects moving forward, and I think it's made us. It's kind of reiterated to us the importance of us as a practice kind of embracing that and really understanding it properly, and understanding the impacts that buildings have on places and communities, and how people live and work in buildings that we design.
Absolutely. And are you seeing that sort of outside of your practice? Are you kind of seeing that switch in mindset kind of taking place, or is that more you guys been forward thinking?
Probably not yet, but I think things are starting to kind of warm up a bit. We've become really busy. The educational sector is there's a lot of funding available through the sort of T-level programs. We're working with a lot of colleges around developing those sort of technical and vocational skills. So there's lots of funding available in that arena, and there's a lot of heritage funding as well. So we're working with a few heritage action zones. So looking at regeneration of historic high streets and how we can kind of transform them going forward. And although that work had started before the pandemic has kind of reiterated the need to relook at high streets and how they're used and how they might change in their use patterns and character in the future years. So yeah, we're very busy as a practice, and it's all the work that we really enjoy doing. So we're kind of seeing the benefits, I think, of having that sort of foresight to understand what we're about, and it comes down to when we talk about these projects, we get, when you see the impact buildings have on children, for example, it's phenomenal when you get that feedback. That we got feedback from a college last week that was You know, we don't deserve this, and it was sort of heartbreaking, really, that everybody deserves lovely environments to be educated in and work in and learning. And it's kind of, it just every time we work on a project like that, it reiterates to us that the sort of the approach we've taken is kind of the right approach for us, and will probably stand us in good stead moving forward in attracting the clients that we want to work with.
Brilliant, brilliant. So how have you had to adapt over the last year in terms of looking after your team? How have your team been?
It's probably daily Teams calls. It's meant that we've kind of changed the way that we operate as a sort of, we historically had a weekly meeting where we'd review priorities that were coming in the next week or 2 weeks, 3 weeks. We've become a lot more, again, practice across the practice focused. I think that one of the sort of downsides of working remotely is particularly for the younger members of the team, they're not getting that exposure to incremental, you know, telephone calls and discussions that are happening around a subject that you would get in an office environment. And I think that's where it's kind of, we've recognised that is really important for people to be properly mentored. You need to be able to have that ongoing dialogue with them, rather than a sort of daily update in front of everybody, in front of the rest of the team. It's kind of much more, what's the word I'm looking for? It's just kind of much more intuitive, and that sort of incidental conversations that can lead to a design completely changing from one thing to another. And it is that we've kind of missed. But they've all dealt with it well. It's just, I think it's kind of got to that point now where we need to kind of get back together and feel like we're part of a bigger team.
Absolutely. So what does it mean for you as a leader? How do you feel you've had to adapt?
My role changed during lockdown, so I became more focused on developing work in the heritage sector. So my role's changed as a sort of more of a consequence of that, I would say. So again, it's rather than previously I was working with one team of 4 people, spreading that knowledge across the practice so that we've got more, so we can develop depth and breadth of experience and knowledge within the practice. So it's not just me as an individual, that knowledge gets spread through the team. So that's been an interesting change to how I work as a leader, and it means that my knowledge has been sort of spread through the whole practice and not just one team. So that was something that we wanted to happen, and it's kind of forced us to do that probably quicker than we would have done. But yeah, it means that knowledge is growing at a greater speed than it would have done previously in the previous structure.
Brilliant. So what would you say was kind of the biggest positive that you can take away from everything else that's gone on, in the adaptations that you've made, and things that have gone on that are positive for you guys? What's a win for you?
I think that the lack of barrier for working with people all over the country, there's not the use of digital methods of communicating has been a real benefit in reducing travel times and meaning that people can get together much more quickly and spontaneously than, as a practice we work all over the northwest and north, sort of down to Sheffield at the moment. Do quite a lot of work in sort of Wakefield, and so there's lots of kind of travel time, and that the reduction in that, and obviously the reduction in environmental impact of all of those journeys, as well as the time that we've gained in not having to incorporate that into our day has meant that we're just much more efficient as a practice. And I think we'll try and maintain that going forward. We've noticed in the last week there's been a flurry of meetings, but hopefully we'll be able to balance that with Teams calls going forward, because it is a huge, it's quite a drain on your day if you're traveling 3 hours to get to a 1 hour meeting and then driving back. It's not very sustainable. So we're hoping that clients will be a bit more open to sort of carrying on this way of communicating, and also in the rise in CPD online has really taken off. So I do a lot of work with the RIBA through various guises. So I'm RIBA regional chair for the Northwest, and it's forced the RIBA to look at digital means of education. So I've been involved in quite a lot of events through that, and the ability to really to access people nationally and not be constrained by, well, is it an hour to get to? Is it 2 hours? Or no, maybe not. I'll leave that. I'll just to be able to log in and learn has been a real plus point. I think that it means that we can pick and choose when we do it as well. As we're all busy in our days, and we all need slightly different training in what kind of sectors we work in. So it means that we can be a bit more agile in how we gain that knowledge through online CPD.
Brilliant. So what, with everything that you've learned, that the team has learned, if you could go back to last March, knowing what you know now, what would you have done sooner, or what would you have done differently?
I think as a practice, I think it's being more open to people working with more agility. I suppose it comes down to trusting the team, and I think there was a little bit of a fear of people actually going to work through for the full day, that sort of anxieties around that. But I think it's proven that the team do work, and that you call them and they're there at the desk. They're where they should be, and that actually the time gained in not having to travel into work and the commutes and also travel into meetings has actually gained us back a lot more time. So I think the balance isn't quite right, working fully from home, but the balance of sort of 2 to 3 days a week in the office is going to be beneficial to everyone. And I think going forward, it's going to be an expectation of people, new people joining us as well in recruitment. I think without that flexibility, I think we'd struggle to get staff now, having gone through last year, and just valuing time at home. And it's probably get the same story from everyone. I've seen my family for probably a little bit too much now. Yeah, it's been quite just being able to sort of switch off is quite I think it's been most challenging to stop at the right time of day and not carry on.
A lot of people have said that as well. It's, when you're at home, not necessarily 9 to 5, is it? You get up, you're at the dining table or your desk, your home office, wherever it may be, straight away. And I think it is harder to almost switch off and make that differentiation between the dining table being the dining table and the dining table being your home office.
Yeah.
So, what kind of challenges do you sort of envision, sort of as we emerge from lockdown and we're faced with this new normal? What kind of challenges do you think you guys might face?
I think understanding the impacts is going to be important going forward. I think it's going to, when you look at the impact it'll have on the residential sector, will people, will we have to provide garden spaces and outdoor spaces? The need for outdoor space, I think, has become so much more prevalent, and the need to build in that, you know, that space within apartments for office spaces, and having that awareness about the impacts of buildings on how people feel and people's well-being. I've been spending the last 6 months studying for the WELL accreditation, which is around wellness and health and wellness, and it's been a challenge. But really kind of thinking hard about how, you know, buildings impact on the environment, how buildings impact on health and well-being, and I think that will become much more at the forefront of the briefing process going forward. Well, I kind of hope so, but I think it'll be more important for developments to have a conscience about how people's health and well-being is impacted on by things like natural daylight, natural ventilation, and cleanliness. You know, maybe trends for exposed brickwork won't be, you know, it's that when you start to think about the impact on materials in buildings and how wipeable surfaces are and things like that, there's so many different strands to it that it's going to be an interesting moving forward from this point, really. But I think as well the impact it will have on communities such as, you know, the communities we're working in high street heritage action zones, where, you know, the need for investment to bring positivity to these places is just really important. And as soon as you get that energy and that positive, those positive people in those developments that can really bring out the best in, you know, what a beautiful, potentially beautiful historic high streets that just haven't been maintained, or they haven't been looked after. They've kind of the UPVC shop fronts added, and, you know, taking them back to that historic high street will bring so much new life to them, and reducing that focus on retail, but looking more at sort of leisure uses and workspaces that people can, you know, get a relief from working from home. They go and work locally in a small workspace where they rent a desk for £50 a week, or, you know, the more of that agile working is going to. I'm hoping that it means a greater investment in local communities, sort of residential communities, as well as a positive that will come out of this. I think the cities will survive, and Manchester looks to be thriving in the last week anyway. It's buzzing with people, and it's been quite sad to see the impact it has on the city centre. But I think it will recover, and I also think it will mean that one of the outcomes, I think, will be looking at buildings more of a kind of looking at the long-term sustainability of buildings, and how can this residential building be adapted to office, be adapted to something else. And, you know, that can come down to just things that you do at the front end of projects, that whether it's floor to floor heights, that it's adaptable to various uses as you know, the use of the city changes or the use of the areas changes. Looking at more at that sort of adaptability, I think, might become more important.
Definitely. So what does the future hold? Tell us about something that we're allowed to know about, something exciting that's coming up for you guys.
Well, the projects that we get involved in are just, I do always feel really lucky, the variety of projects that we get involved in. So we're looking at a number of hotel developments in historic sites that, you know, again, as a result of the pandemic, people really appreciating the UK for what it's got to offer, and looking more locally, and choosing the long weekends, a number of long weekends as opposed to the one big holiday a year, and really looking at harnessing those historic sites to give people the opportunities to get, you know, go out into the countryside and get fresh air and get exercise. And so we're looking at a number of projects in that sort of sector. I'm not allowed to say where, but so we've been working at the kind of Bretton Hall estate in the Yorkshire Sculpture Park for a number of years. That's a, you know, a fantastic heritage asset that's in this amazing parkland setting, and it's been a project that's been around for a few years, but we'll hopefully see that through next year, with the sort of main scheme of on site, with a few smaller schemes at the moment, but with a view to the big scheme next year. So yeah, we've just education. The education sector, like I said earlier, is kind of one of our key focus areas, and I was also involved in the creation of the architectural apprenticeship. So that's something that I'm, well, as a practice and me personally, really passionate about, opening architecture up to a broader social diversity. So I was one of the key people who set up that apprenticeship with the Trailblazer team. So that for me is really important, to ensure that we have a social diversity within the profession, and that the barrier of the fees that's associated with studying for 5 years as an architect is no longer a barrier, and I think as a way for future architects to learn, it's going to become a lot more popular as a route to qualification, and will give them, you know, a much broader range of experience than the current format so the time that they work in practice based on a sort of full-time model. So that's something that I think will change in the kind of architectural world.
Amazing, fantastic. Well, listen, thank you so much for chatting with us. It's so interesting, so interesting to learn more about what you do and sort of projects and things that you're working on. It'd be really cool to speak to you again in another 6 months or 12 months to find out what we're not allowed to know now, find out what we're doing. Well, thank you so much for chatting with us and sharing your experiences and your learning. We really do appreciate it. Thank you ever so much, Lisa.
You're very welcome. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for watching. What was your takeaway from today's interview? Please post it in the comments below, and subscribe for all our upcoming videos, or click for the next video here.